What really happened when Nigerian soldiers were arrested in Burkina Faso? Was it a hostile act, a misunderstanding, or a breach of protocol that escalated into a diplomatic issue? In recent days, conflicting narratives have circulated across social media and regional news outlets. But behind the noise lies a serious security and diplomatic moment, one that compelled President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria to dispatch a high-level delegation to Ouagadougou to negotiate the release of detained Nigerian personnel. Before we go deeper, if you value African stories explained with context and balance, like this video, subscribe to Voice of Africa, and share your thoughts in the comments.
First of all, I am leading a delegation sent by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to deliver a message to President Ibrahim Traoré, a message of brotherhood, a message of solidarity from one African country to another. We discuss several issues related to the security of our region, particularly the fight against terrorism and how we must work together to combat these threats. We also discussed matters relating to the Nigerian aircraft that made an emergency landing in Burkina Faso after suffering a technical fault. It is regrettable that there were irregularities in the documents, notably regarding authorization to overfly Burkina Faso airspace. This is unfortunate, and we apologize for this unhappy incident. We also address the issue of a leader of a Nigerian political party who made inappropriate comments regarding this incident. This is likely due to a misunderstanding of the situation. President Traoré, the government of Burkina Faso, and the Burkina Faso people were very welcoming and willing to support us. The crew was treated very well. This is obvious and evident, and it is clear that President Traoré was directly informed about the care given to the crew from the moment they arrived in Burkina Faso. This highlights the level of brotherhood and solidarity that exists between two African nations. Of course, we also discussed how we can collaborate not only between our two countries, but also with other countries in the region in the fight against terrorism. Burkina Faso has recorded significant successes in this area, and there are lessons to be learned from that experience. Naturally, there are also many things that we can share together.
The incident that triggered diplomatic engagement between Nigeria and Burkina Faso began with the unexpected landing of an aircraft carrying Nigerian military personnel on Burkina Faso territory. According to official accounts discussed during the meeting, the aircraft entered Burkina Faso's airspace and landed without proper authorization. This lack of clearance immediately raised red flags for Burkina Faso authorities, particularly given the region's heightened security environment and ongoing counter-terrorism operations. In a Sahel region plagued by armed groups, illicit trafficking, and cross-border threats, airspace violations are treated with extreme caution. Burkina Faso, like many countries facing persistent security challenges, has reinforced strict protocols to protect its sovereignty. Against this backdrop, the presence of foreign military personnel arriving without authorization was viewed as a serious irregularity, not a minor administrative oversight. As a result, the Nigerian soldiers involved were detained by Burkina Faso authorities, pending clarification of the circumstances surrounding their arrival. The detention quickly became the subject of speculation, with some reports suggesting political motives or deliberate provocation. However, the diplomatic engagement that followed paints a more complex and measured picture. Recognizing the potential for escalation, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu moved swiftly. Rather than allowing misinformation or diplomatic tension to fester, he authorized the dispatch of a delegation to Burkina Faso. The mission was clear: deliver a message of fraternity, explain the circumstances of the incident, and negotiate the release of the detained Nigerian soldiers through dialogue. Leading the delegation, Nigeria's representative conveyed that the visit was not confrontational but conciliatory. The message carried to President Ibrahim Traoré emphasized solidarity between African nations and acknowledged the seriousness of the situation. Central to the discussions was an admission that irregularities existed in the flight documentation, particularly concerning authorization to overfly and land in Burkina Faso airspace. This acknowledgement marked a critical turning point. By recognizing procedural failures rather than denying them, the Nigerian delegation shifted the discussion away from blame toward resolution. An official apology was issued for the unauthorized landing, described as an unfortunate incident rather than an intentional breach of sovereignty. The delegation also addressed public comments made by a Nigerian political figure who had criticized Burkina Faso's handling of the incident. These remarks were described as inappropriate and rooted in misunderstanding. Nigerian officials clarified that such statements did not reflect the position of the Nigerian government and stressed the importance of preventing inflammatory rhetoric from complicating sensitive diplomatic matters. Throughout the engagement, the tone remained notably respectful. Nigerian officials praised President Traoré, the Burkina government, and the people of Burkina Faso for their professionalism and hospitality. Despite the seriousness of the security breach, the detained soldiers were reportedly treated well, with their welfare carefully monitored. Observers noted that President Traoré himself was kept informed of their situation, signaling that the matter was being handled at the highest levels of government. This approach underscores a broader reality in contemporary African diplomacy. Security concerns and sovereignty are non-negotiable, but dialogue remains the preferred tool for resolution. Burkina Faso's actions reflected its determination to enforce national security protocols, while Nigeria's response demonstrated accountability and a willingness to engage constructively. Beyond the immediate issue of the detained soldiers, the meeting expanded into a wider discussion on regional security cooperation. Both sides acknowledged that terrorism and cross-border instability cannot be addressed in isolation. Armed groups operate fluidly across national boundaries, exploiting weak coordination and political fragmentation. Burkina Faso's recent security operations were highlighted during the talks, with Nigerian officials recognizing the progress made by Burkina forces against armed groups. While challenges persist, these gains were viewed as valuable lessons for regional collaboration. The exchange signaled a readiness to move from isolated national responses toward more coordinated strategies. Importantly, the meeting reframed the incident not as a rupture in relations, but as a stress test for African solidarity. Mistakes were acknowledged, sovereignty was respected, and communication channels remained open. In a region where misunderstandings have previously escalated into prolonged diplomatic disputes, this response stands out. The arrest of Nigerian soldiers in Burkina Faso could easily have been weaponized politically or exploited by external narratives seeking to portray African states as divided or hostile toward one another. Instead, both governments chose restraint. The focus remained on facts, procedures, and mutual respect. For many Africans, this episode raises important questions. How should regional militaries coordinate movements in an era of heightened security? What mechanisms exist to prevent such incidents from recurring? And how can African states strengthen trust while maintaining strict control over their sovereignty? What is clear is that President Tinubu's decision to send a delegation, rather than issue public ultimatums, reflects a diplomatic philosophy grounded in engagement. Likewise, Burkina Faso's willingness to receive the delegation and handle the matter through dialogue reflects confidence in its sovereignty and commitment to regional stability. As discussions continue, attention now turns to the outcome of the negotiations and the eventual release of the detained soldiers. While official details remain limited, the tone of the meeting suggests that both sides are working toward a resolution that preserves dignity and strengthens bilateral relations. This incident, though tense, may ultimately serve as a catalyst for improved coordination between West African states. Clearer communication channels, better military-to-military coordination, and reinforced respect for airspace protocols could emerge as practical outcomes. In a region often portrayed through conflict and division, this story offers a more nuanced reality. African nations are capable of enforcing their sovereignty while still upholding fraternity. They can address security breaches without abandoning diplomacy, and they can resolve misunderstandings through dialogue rather than escalation. This is the kind of African story that deserves careful attention, not sensationalism. If you want more balanced, in-depth reporting on African security and diplomacy, subscribe to Voice of Africa. Like this video to help spread African-centered narratives and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think incidents like this will push West Africa